Well, good day to you, one and all. It's been almost 10 years now since the Brexit vote. We don't seem to be any closer at reversing that decision.
So this is not about rejoining, it's not about going back into the single market, the customs union. No case for rejoining the EU.
Which is strange because they are absolutely desperate for money. Money that could probably be sourced by rejoining the single market. And what with all this talk of jacking up defence spending to 2.5% of our GDP, the efficiency savings that Rachel Reeves is asking every single one of her departments to find, and the economy petering on at a really impressive barnstorming 0.1%, I thought it might be interesting to revisit some of the cheerleaders back in the day because, you know, everyone literally across the parties, I think with the exception of the Liberal Democrats, everyone still seems to be inhabiting a political, nay, intellectual space where they want to make a success of Brexit. They're going to make Brexit work. So yeah, I thought, you know what? Who better placed to advise us, to guide us in terms of whether it's possible to make Brexit into a success? If not for the country, then at least, you know, for you personally or your business. Who could be better placed than the business leaders who campaigned for Brexit in 2016? Let's go back and see how they're faring today. Because back in 2016, Sir James Dyson, the founder of Dyson Limited, was a key vocal Brexit supporter, arguing that the UK would benefit from regulatory freedom and global trade opportunities.
Few British entrepreneurs have been quite as enthusiastic about Brexit as Sir James Dyson.
Instead of being tied within Europe, we can now do trade agreements with countries all over the world. Europe is a declining part of world trade. It's now down to about 12%, and in about 5 years' time it'll be 9% of world trade.
Now, I remember very clearly at the time people saying, "Oh, James, if you leave the EU trading bloc and its, you know, its standards, its regulations, and you go and sign a trade deal with like Mozambique or South Africa or something, it's never going to be enough to backfill the supermarket that you've just left. Plus, you are still going to have to manufacture to the EU's trading standards and regulations if indeed you want to continue selling in the EU. The only difference is that you will now have to pay tariffs, so your products will become less competitive within the member states of the European Union. So you're making it harder for yourself to sell to this block here, but also the other, like the new stuff, it's never going to be enough to backfill, right? But what did I know? I was just some, idiot with a YouTube channel, a podcast, a TikTok account. So how did Sir James Dyson fare? Well, despite Dyson's optimism, the company announced in 2019 that it would move its headquarters to Singapore. Right. Oh, okay.
This is extraordinary hypocrisy. He's basically ditching Britain.
Doesn't say a lot about his faith in Brexit Britain, though, does it?
This is someone who campaigned vehemently for leave, said that it would be better for the economy, better for Britain.
The decision was, of course, criticised as contradictory to Dyson's pro-Brexit stance. Because if you want to make a success of the British economy by leaving the European Union, why wouldn't you stay in the United Kingdom? Why would you flee Brexit Britain if you were so sure of its success? Additionally, it's believed that Brexit-related trade barriers and supply chain disruptions will have almost certainly impacted the company's operations here in Europe. Well, who could have seen that coming? Meanwhile, Wurzel Gummage's oxygen-starved cousin, Tim Martin, the founder and chairman of JD Wetherspoons, was a prominent Brexit advocate, you will recall. I always like to think of him as, Al Murray's The Pub Landlord character. Well, he's like the pub landlord. Well, throughout the campaign, he partied and celebrated that leaving the EU would reduce costs and bureaucracy for businesses like his. Partied and celebrated. Okay, and what was his hangover like? Well, the pub chain faced significant challenges due to Brexit, including supply chain disruptions, labour shortages, and rising costs for imported goods. Cheers! Martin would later admit that Brexit had indeed caused some hiccups. And of course, Dyson and Wetherspoons were not the only casualties of Brexit. John Caudwell of Phones 4U fame, Ineos, JML, all of these companies were headed by vocal Brexit supporters like Jim Ratcliffe and John Mills.
Now, on the growth front, I think that if we are outside the European Union, growth prospects certainly wouldn't be any worse than we've got at the moment and might be considerably better.
And of course, they got totally Kool-Aid drunk as well, and they started geeing up all this talk about sovereignty and how the UK could thrive independently. But JML had to navigate the complexities of new regulations for exporting goods back into the EU. Ineos have had to deal with increased costs and delays of importing raw materials and exporting their finished products. And Phones 4U collapsed. So, yeah, that's all going really well. And look, guys, I know I've made my point, and there's really no need to carry on with any other examples, but I thought that it might be fun to do so let's continue. I still can't work out why it never troubled any of these great minds of business, like how they thought they could, I don't know, like dilute the regulatory standards of, especially like things like chicken, right? How you could dilute the regulatory expectation of the standard you would produce food to and then not lose access to the European Union. And if you were okay about losing access to the EU, where you thought you would like pick up the slack, how you thought you would backfill from losing that market, and the rising costs and the supply chain disruptions. I saw a wicked tweet a couple of weeks ago. I wish I could find it now. I've had a look. I can't find it, but it was basically like Brexit in 3 pictures. And the first picture was the guy saying how much he supported Brexit. Like he was really like rallying the troops. Come on, we can make a success outside of the European Union. And then in the second picture, it was like he was desperately looking for staff. He couldn't find staff for his business. And then in the third picture, it was him announcing that regrettably his business had closed. Industrially, fishing also felt the brunt of leaving the European Union, because many in the UK's fishing industry, I'm sure you guys already know this, but just humour me for a moment. A lot of people in the UK's fishing industry were strong supporters of Brexit because they believed it would allow them to regain full control, selfish control of the UK's fishing waters. And therefore, if you can fish anywhere and everywhere all around the UK, and there's no like a Dutch fisherman, there's no French fisherman, if it's just you that's fishing in that area, well, look at you. You've suddenly got, I don't know, 10,000 more cod. Imagine how many fishy 50s you could line your pocket with that lot. But it didn't take long before reality came calling, because despite initial optimism, many fishing businesses faced significant challenges due to delays in exporting fresh seafood back into the EU, increased bureaucracy, reduced access to EU markets. Well, that's a nice boatload of cod you got there. Where exactly are you planning on? No, you're not selling it to us. Like, you're not part of the EU anymore. Shops couldn't find European workers. Restaurants couldn't find waiters and chefs. Several independent and high-profile restaurants in London reported struggling to find hospitality staff to serve the capital's grumbling dummies. Which I do have a little bit of sympathy for the Brexiters among you with regard to that specific kind of situation, because the whole thing with like leaving the EU and then cutting off or like turning off the immigrant tap, if you like relying on cheap labor, the whole thing was that then you would get Brits applying to do those jobs. But that doesn't work when you're dealing with like a millionaire and billionaire class, where their classist hatred of the poor basically means they would rather close their businesses than pay working class people a fair wage. Like, you had restaurateurs, you had department store chief executives, everybody complaining in the Times and the Telegraph going like, I just can't find the staff. Nobody wants to work anymore. Yeah, people like me going like, have you tried paying like modestly more? I can't find the staff. No, nobody wants to work anymore. Right, but the whole thing, like, you supported Brexit, right? So now you don't have immigrants to staff your shops and restaurants. So if you want indigenous Brits to fill those roles, you're going to have to pay a little bit more to attract them in, to pick the fruit, to serve the plates. And then they're like, no, all right, you got me. All I wanted was just to like serve chlorinated chicken. That was it. Even the government at the time, this is the one that really stings. Like, even the government, the Tory government at the time, successive Tory governments, they sold Brexit on the basis that it would be good for wage growth because you would have to pay Brits more to do certain roles, to attract them into those jobs, right? Now, you turn off the tap, you no longer have Italian teachers, French teachers, German teachers coming over here to fill those roles in secondary schools. So you would think that the government would set an example and up the wages of teachers to attract Brits into those roles. But no. Just like the private sector, just like the restaurateurs and the farmers and the retail guys and the pubs, they were like, yeah, I can't bring myself to pay more to attract people in. So even the fucking government were like, no, we'll just we'll just keep the job open. We'll just wait for somebody to apply. Anyway, guys, that's it. From Dyson to Wetherspoons and beyond. There is no shortage of vociferous Brexit supporters from 2016 who continue to feel the ripple effects of their own idiocy. But are they accepting their role in the disaster that is Brexit? Are they showcasing some of that good old Tory self-responsibility? Do you accept that maybe it was a mistake to support Brexit, that it's had some role in the downfall of some of your business that, like, do you regret it?
No, it just wasn't done right.
Good stuff.
Just enough